I ordered some fancy licorice from Sweden, and there was one where they said, don't eat more than 10 of these in a row for reasons you'll find out. I never found
that's
out.
like, there was like the Amazon review where it was for like a giant, like 10 kilogram bag of gummy bears or something. And it was like this incredibly poetic review, basically being like, I blew out my own asshole because I ate too many of these at once.
It's body time in Japan. Welcome to Insert Credit, the only show where a squadron, I don't know what it's called, of
cadre?
Humans must answer questions in 6 minutes or less, or be smitten by a horrifying buzzer. I'm Brandon Sheffield, and my first Tokyo Game Show was 2003. And now you must say your name and when your first Tokyo Game Show was.
My name is Tina Carter, and my first real TGS was 2022.
Excellent.
Really? Wow.
I went for a public day once before that, but it was basically pop in, look around, and leave again because we were very poorly prepared.
That doesn't count? I feel like that counts.
That counts. My first TGS, I didn't have a press pass. So.
Okay, that would have been like 2012,
Okay.
13
See,
or
now
something.
That's more interesting. My name is Mark McDonald, and my first Tokyo Game Show would have been fall Tokyo Game Show back when there were 2 a year.
Oh, yeah.
In 1997 or 98. I want to say 98.
I think yours was probably 98 because I am John Riccardi, and my first Tokyo Game Show was spring 1998. And I feel like you came to the one, like that was before everyone else started coming, right? I was like, it was like with the Ed Semrad days and stuff.
I couldn't remember if I came before. It was definitely my first one in the industry.
Sure. That's true. You may have been there before just as like a fan. It's a long time ago.
Back when we used to cover it for the media, back when printed
25 years
trees,
ago.
they would cut down trees, and press them, and sell these things called magazines that talked about video games.
I did it for that too.
Yeah, that's right.
Game Developer Magazine back in the day.
That's right.
So, as you may have heard, this is a bunch of people from the 8-4 Play podcast.
Yay.
And we're doing a podcast exchange.
That's right.
So,
a pod swap.
I haven't told you all this, but these same questions will also be asked to the panel back home. We're gonna have a Japan versus US sort of a thing. I'm not sure if this one's airing first or second, but
okay.
The pressure is on.
So it's not a contest or anything, but don't mess up, you guys.
Exactly. That's what it is. Right. So let's get straight on into it. The first question is, how has Japanese corporate culture manifested itself in the history of game development?
Ooh, Japanese corporate culture embedded itself in the game industry. Manifested itself.
So, like, for example, I can give an example of a certain company, which I will not name, but may have mentioned before by accident, used to have multiple teams working on similar third-person action games using completely different engines. And having secret project names that the two teams couldn't tell each other.
Right.
Or like, you're on Project K, oh, I'm Project J, and that's it.
Well, Nintendo famously pitted Yamauchi, the old president, CEO, pitted teams against each other, like very openly. And it was just a thing to try to get the best out of people that believed it was like to have people really feel like they were in competition.
Microsoft tried to do that for a while too, and it went super poorly.
Doesn't seem like the greatest idea personally, but
this isn't particularly Japanese, other than the fact that it happened in a Japanese company. But like I do know there was this one game developer in particular where they would change the whole staff's emails like every 6 months to avoid them getting poached. And
I'll say that was Konami, as far as I know.
I'll say that too. It was also a mix of, just so people know, it wasn't like Mark McDonald and then Mark Mac and Mark MacD. It was like E497. It was like a password.
It was like you were signing up for Twitter for the first time.
Exactly.
It was like trying to make it complicated to remember, even if you wanted to.
They also took screenshots randomly of while people were working throughout the day to see what they were working on and make sure that they were working on. Lots of
track people
cool fun
coming
stuff.
in and out of the building. You'd have to ask for permission to make a copy of something. Like, it was just very like, this is a long time ago, mind you.
This is when they were making some of the best regarded games in the industry at the time, by the way. It was not a recent thing. I heard of other Japanese producers, who are kind of hold all the power on a Japanese team. The term is used. It's kind of more like a creative director, executive producer, or whatever in the West. But producers here would have total carte blanche decision making on the projects, right down to whether they came out on a platform or not. And there was not a justification necessarily, like a business justification for it. It was like, oh, well, I'm friends with so-and-so, or I like this system or whatever. Like a lot of decision making. I feel like this is an older thing, but like the Capcom, what was it? The Capcom 6 or whatever, the GameCube that they announced, Capcom 5 or whatever. This has come out since then, but it was a lot of relationship stuff between people at Capcom and people at Nintendo. And there was like things about like, well, we're going to give you a free memory card to pack in with it. It was a lot of like backroom wheeling and dealing that didn't make like logic on a P&L sheet, but it was for like obscure corporate reasons and relationship reasons. And I feel like that is, in a sense, like very Japanese corporate culture.
Yeah. I'm afraid to start a new thing here with your timer. You got me all scared.
No, it's fine. You got 2.5 minutes.
We need a big 24 clock on the wall. Counting down to tell us how much time is left here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that, has eased up over the years too, right? I feel like, since not the advent of the internet, but I think since like social media went mainstream and people have become capable of sharing information more easily, a lot of practices that were sort of really weird or outdated or whatever, it was easier for people to make that known to their bosses and whatnot, and things are kind of smoothing out like a lot more compared to, like 10 or 12 years ago.
Yeah. And this is getting into really sexy podcast territory, but like corporate governance in Japan really hasn't existed. So like there's boards, but you don't really have to answer to them. Like, wait, why aren't you putting this out on Steam? Like, or what is this PC market? Or why are you putting, so.
I mean, you can't really fire anybody.
And then there's that.
That is true.
And then there's
which is good and bad. And I was just wondering the other day, like I was watching this salaryman guy kind of slumping on the train, and it's like, this guy can't get fired. Why is he working himself to death?
Mm.
Right.
If we had that in the US, people would not be whole assing it.
It is interesting. Yeah. The pluses and minuses of that whole, you really do have to show that your company is like going out of business due to this person in order to fire. You can't just say, oh, project's over, we're going to fire those 30 people and then maybe we'll rehire them later or whatever. Like you can.
But you can hire a bunch of temp workers and make them work too much.
So that's a huge outgrowth of what, and then you have this big shadow industry behind the gaming industry that is temp workers, that they can do that too, that they can just say, okay, you're only going to work for us for 9 months or whatever. But then if you find a great person, they move on to the next project, and like which projects get the available and the best of the roving temp workers is like a big thing here. I mean, yeah. Oh shit. Is it happening?
That's time.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Just started getting good. All that corporate governance talk. We took up all our 6 minutes with all that sexy corporate governance talk. It gives us every time.
Here's one that may or may not be easier. What are Japanese arcades like right now? I can't imagine you all are going to them a lot right now, but
where they exist anymore, they're very much decreasing.
It's just different. I mean, I do have one near my apartment, oddly enough, but it's more like it's the like upper floor of a amusement center, I guess. It used to be one of those Sega ones that got bought by, what are they called now?
Gigo?
Is it Gigo? Gigo, yeah. There's a Gigo, and the whole first floor is just the machines, the
crane
UFO
machines?
catchers, crane machines. And then the second floor though is a full on proper arcade, but it's largely music games and like Taiko no Tatsujin or like all the Bimani stuff.
There's a lot of like the new, I don't know what to call the genre, the hand motion music game genre.
Yeah.
Those games.
Where you're like wiping down a washing machine is what it looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
All kinds of physical movements and activities. Yeah.
You're doing like para dancing, basically simulating it. And like those games never, besides random like Dave and Buster's probably on the West Coast, like a lot of those games never make it outside of Japan.
Well, we have Round One in the US now.
That's right.
And Round One is a Osaka-based company, and I've never actually been to a Round One here, though I have seen them. I see it when I pass by on the train from Makuhari over to here from Tokyo Game Show.
Wait, I'm really interested to hear what the Round One is like over there. Is it bowling?
There is bowling. There's bowling. There's karaoke rooms, and there's $2 Kirin pints, which is unfindable elsewhere. And there is a bunch of Japanese arcade games and a lot of games that are brought over from Japan that aren't localized yet as well. So you could play like Gunslinger Stratos when it wasn't. I mean, I guess it never really truly came out here, but they do have a lot of the wipe down a washing machine games. They have
Interesting.
They have Groove Coaster. They have a bunch of those. So yeah, it's actually really neat, and it reminds me of the arcade culture of the 90s because you've got people who clearly went to these arcades in the past now bringing their kids there and being like, enjoy this, please. Please like this.
You're not allowed to dislike this activity.
Yeah.
Get used to it.
You have to have fun here.
Yeah, I think the like print club picture taking things ate a lot of the arcade space. UFO catchers, a lot of things that you can tell used to be arcades now are just gotcha ball machines or the UFO catchers. What's left is a lot of those types of games. The hand wavy music games of different kinds, the B-Mania kind of games, fighting games. Usually when they'll have some fighting games. They'll have a few shooting games like old school side scrolling, vertical scrolling shooters, that type of stuff. You can't smoke in arcades anymore. You used to be able to. That took a long time to stop here.
I mean, that's older arcades, but that was very much a thing, right? For years and years and years. Like you didn't go in an arcade and not expect to come out smelling like smoke, but that was just part of
and they were getting
culture.
Squeezed, and then Corona really, the COVID years really knocked a lot of them off. That was already like the decreasing numbers. And so, yeah, it is. I mean, it's pretty rare. There used to be one near every station, at least one near every station in Japan, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s. And now it's like, I feel pretty rare to have a station that has one.
Thought we were very lucky to have stumbled upon one near our apartment, but it upsets me because those crane games, I have probably spent like a decent chunk of money trying to get a stuffed Kirby or something. And you never, ever win. Like you probably have to play like 10 times, like to actually, cause like they're so rigged.
It's rigged.
To like not, they are rigged, but I mean,
Do you enjoy the act of trying to get it, even if you don't
because
win?
I do know sooner or later one lucky fool is going to actually get the Kirby, but it's
but
not,
it won't be
It's
you.
actually cheaper to just buy it on Mercari. It's like an online. Basically,
They have Mercari. They have Mercari in.
Oh yeah, they have Mercari. I don't know how you pronounce it in English, but
on NFL,
we call it Americari.
It's actually great.
We don't actually, but we should.
You should, yeah. But yeah, it's cheaper to just buy it off there, first from somebody who won it than it is to
That's
try.
why they do it. That's why it makes money.
It's not like the Yakuza games where you just go in there and you can win basically every time. Yeah,
it actually works. Yeah. Well, something I've noticed there's more of these days is rich or otherwise space-having persons making their own kind of vanity arcade situation out here. There's like there's that pinball place that's clearly losing money. There used to be the warehouse in Kawasaki that had the Kowloon Walled City thing.
Yes.
I was just talking about that today, actually.
Which was like the coolest arcade that ever existed. In Shinsekai in Osaka, there's an American arcade, which is just all American arcades games, and they're only open 2 weekends a month.
Whoa,
American arcade
what?
games, meaning like games that were developed in the US or whatever.
Yeah. So
That's crazy.
It's like Pac-Man and Pong and
Right.
NARC.
Miss Pac-Man, right? That's the American one.
Yeah, Miss Pac-Man. That's right.
Nice.
Whoops. Any last comments? No? Okay, then we're going to move along.
There was amazing. Our favorite arcade that was right in the middle of Shibuya.
I love that
It
place,
had 50 games for 50 yen, which was incredibly rare. Games were expensive. Video games were, they're not now, but like 100, they've been 100 yen for a long time.
Space
here.
Invaders was 100 yen, yeah.
A long fucking time. This is in the late 70s, which is basically like $1.
Back then it was like $2.
Yeah, now it's 75 cents right now.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Design an online multiplayer game where the mechanics are intended to incorporate international time zone differences.
Well, that's been solved because Phantasy Star Online's Swatch system, whatever that thing was called, has already solved this, right? It's whatever, like 2 cat emojis. I forget the system of time that they came up with that everybody was going to use to coordinate across international time zones. Gabe probably remembers. Gabe, who's off mic here, which is very helpful. I know. You don't remember this at all?
I remember it.
I remember
it had a
vaguely,
name
but
for
it did
it.
have a name. Beats? Swatch time. Oh, yeah, it was swatch time.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah, swatch time.
What did that do exactly? Can you explain that?
No, I don't even understand it myself. It was just designed to, I don't even know if it did use like numbers. It used like numbers counted up to like 360 or something instead of, okay. It went to 1,000 beats in a day and everybody could just agree on, you just had to know.
So everyone was just like, it's currently 642.
You just looked at your watch.
Yeah, you had to like 6 o'clock didn't mean anything anymore. It was like everyone would have their own idea of what 23 is. Like for some people that's the morning and some people it's the evening.
I see.
Like,
so
we're meeting at 300 beats.
So it's basically having an in-world clock that is the same for every player regardless of their local time settings.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like games like Breath of the Wild sort of solve that though by just making 24-minute days in game, and where you can have like you can understand the time because it's based on 24 hours, except 1 hour is 1 minute, and then
I didn't realize that's what they did.
So it's day and night happens a lot more often, but regardless of where you are in the world, it's never going to be.
So
weird.
it's design an international game.
So we've done a classic insert credit thing, which is actually to dodge the question entirely.
Right.
And what we're supposed to be doing is designing a game that takes international time differences into account mechanically. So like we want to pay attention to international time. So like in my game company, a bunch of the people are in Europe and some are in the US. And right now I'm in Japan, so I have no idea what day it is or what time it is for anybody. Yeah. But if we were to work that cycle, like for example, we could be mining in a game 24 hours a day.
Or somebody
could have shifts.
Right. Somebody could be doing something at night in the game if it got actually, how about that? How about a game where you're in like a cabin in the woods and some group is after you. You basically have to put people out at watch. And so if everybody's asleep, you're just all going to get slaughtered. Mm-hmm. But you have to somehow be doing some tending. And then when the raiders come in, maybe it's like a Mad Max.
So your team has to be comprised of people who live in different territories or who just never sleep. So that way, when you're ready to go to bed, you hand it over to like Simon over in the UK who takes over the watch.
Well, and some clans and things do this, right? Like in EVE Online or whatever, I think they have like shifts and stuff that you put in where people have to go on patrol or whatever to defend the horde or what have you.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the segment of Resident Evil 4 where you're with, what's his name, Garcia?
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a long unending wave of zombies and you you can board up the windows for the cabin.
Oh yeah.
So if the wave was never ending
mm-hmm.
and you had to constantly although that wouldn't be very fun after a while.
That's already like the most stressful 30 minutes of the entire game or whatever.
It's true.
I feel like very ill-equipped to answer this question in particular because cooperating with other people in video games is like my least favorite thing to possibly do.
What about destroying them in some way? It could also be that.
You could be one of the raiders getting at the people.
There we go.
Trying to kill
so that means I could play whenever I want and other people have to coordinate with each other to defend themselves against me.
You could be the X Factor.
See, to me, that just says that everybody's going to want to play as the killer. Mm-hmm. Why would you not want to play that?
There's always people that want to, there's role-playing type people. There's people that want to be lawful good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't choose the jerk option in a video game ever. So
never ever?
No.
Not even to find out what'll happen?
I can watch it on YouTube later if I want.
That's fair.
The only time I'm ever interested is if it seems like it's going to be funny.
Okay, that's good.
That makes a lot of sense. That sounds very similar to how I approach that stuff.
I mean, there's definitely all types of players out there. There's like the people that want to just organize things. There's
get the unpacking people to set all.
There you go.
The unpacking players to set all the boards up next to each other, next to the windows. It's all ready to go in a very efficient way. Okay, next question.
I think we're going to lose to the insert credit crew on that one. I just feel like
if they don't know in advance, that is a pretty hard question. So.
That is a tough one.
Well, I'm not there, so they're a third.
Oh, they're handicapped.
They're a third down.
All right.
Obviously my answer would have been the best. I can say that because none of the rest of them are here. Okay, this one is called Jaffe's NieR Automata Dilemma.
Oh God!
Boy.
Jaffe is our host.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about David Jaffe.
Not David Jaffe. Not David Jaffe. We have the best of all the Jaffes.
All right.
There's another Alex Jaffe, by the way, who works at Riot. We had him host the show once when our Alex Jaffe was gone.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the dilemma: how is it that sometimes a video game sequel or follow-up can be technically better than the previous one in every way, but you still don't like it as much? So that's the NieR Automata dilemma.
So am I to understand that a particular person who maybe wrote this question just really likes Replicant more than Automata?
Correct.
I mean, that's a very fair opinion to have.
Yeah.
I'm comfy with it.
I like it too.
As a big NieR series fan.
I mean, I think if a game ends up feeling by the numbers almost no matter what, right? If it feels like clinical and designed, and if it doesn't feel inspired, I mean, there are a lot of games like this. I'm not like, good examples are not popping to my head, but when we were reviewing games, I remember a lot of times it was like, well, it's technically better in every way. It's checking all of these different boxes, but it was just like, well, yeah, maybe that game kind of had its moment, or 50 other games just like it kind of came out and the bar had been raised to the degree, or, it felt like it should have had something by now that it didn't, like it should have, online. I was just thinking about this today with Dragon's Dogma 2, because I was just surprised it doesn't have like full real multiplayer. And I guess there's a lot, I've been following it closely, but I guess on the internet, a lot of people were asking that. People just kind of assumed, well, the first one had this faux multiplayer. This next one's going to have full real multiplayer. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways I think it can still be disappointing and still be technically better in every way than the first game.
I'm obviously very biased, having worked on the two games that we're talking about in terms of Replicant, or I guess in his case, he's probably talking about Gestalt, but and then Automata. But I don't think that, well, I guess the thing that I take away from this is that I think it's people who think the first game is much better than the second. I think that's a fair opinion. And people who think the second game is much better than the first, I think that's also a fair opinion.
Well, I think that he thinks the second game is better, but he still likes the first one more. And that's the situation.
Well, that sort of runs towards where I was thinking of going with this, which is that something that I notice more and more, the older I get, is that I think that, and as a reviewer, I'm not saying this is something you need to consider necessarily or not, but as just a person who plays games and how I feel about them or felt about them, I think like your place and time and state of mind and whatever's going on in the world and in your life and everything at that moment really lends a chunk of like whatever that feeling you have about how cool the game was or how I liked it, this and that. A lot of that is also not related to just the game itself, but like you and your life at the time. And so,
certainly,
where this person was when they were playing the first NieR could also potentially have impacted that, or, it was the first time, right? I mean, there are some elements of it that get repeated, like not exactly, but I mean, the general format of the second game is kind of roughly similar in how you replay it, and different things happen and stuff happens at the end and blah, blah, blah. And so the first time is always going to be a little bit more, if not magical, something, right? Whatever it was to you, probably it was the first time. So it was genuinely fresh. So
I'm a very hardcore, games as art kind of person. And when you said the prompt of, like, even if this is technically better, I'm like, what is technically better?
Sure.
Come on. That doesn't mean anything. It's purely, there are different systems or there are different mechanics. Maybe this one's a lot more complicated, whatever. That doesn't matter.
Well, I was thinking maybe technically more in terms of just how hardware performance, because the first game did kind of chug a bit, right?
That's true.
Well, it was a different time.
Sure.
It's, that doesn't reduce your enjoyment if you're having a good time with it. But I think with these games in particular, the characters probably play a really big role, because such a big part of the enjoyment of those games is the banter and listening to them interact with each other, right? And if you have a really soft spot for Pod talking to you and giving you those little hints, you're going to enjoy that. But I personally much prefer listening to Kaina and Vice rag on each other the whole time. Those are some of the best lines in the game as far as I'm concerned.
It's interesting, again, back when we were reviewing games a lot, because we would talk about this kind of thing a lot. I can now remember a couple examples of, like, Perfect Dark was an example where I think specifically people were like, well, it's better in every way than GoldenEye. Like, it's got more guns, it's got more levels, it's got more, right? You're like laughing as I say it, because it does sound ridiculous. But literally, this is the thinking where it's like, well, I guess in GoldenEye got a whatever, I gave GoldenEye a 9, so Perfect Dark has to get a 9.5 or a 10 or whatever. And it's only then in retrospect that it comes out where it's like, oh, wait a second. No, it is not as good. You can't think of things just as like this laundry list and like, this is quote unquote better. Like to your point, Tina, it's like, well, this had 4 modes and this one has 5 and this didn't have multiplayer and this has multiplayer. Like, therefore this one, I should like it more. But like, yeah, it totally doesn't work that way. Right.
Yep. I was going to say, were you in high school when you played the first one? That's the big fact.
There you go.
That's a good question.
Yeah. That's like that answer. Like, what's the best era? Like Saturday Night Live, they always say it. It's like it was whenever you were in high school. Is what they.
Yeah, that applies to like wrestling too. Like YouTube has been feeding me old WWF, back when it was WWF videos, and I'm like, oh yeah, this stuff is awesome to me, but it's probably so boring to anybody who grew up 10 years later. But that's because it's the age you were and where you were. And
also,
everything.
did you know that the best time for music ever was when I was in high school?
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, right.
It's
Isn't that funny how that works out?
It's actually not true though for me. Though.
Okay.
I went to high school. I was in the 90s, and it was
like
all
Limp
the
Bizkit was
yeah,
raging.
Yeah, it was all
boy.
about the nookie at that time.
Oh
and
my
okay, with that, that's the end of that time. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Like literally right before this, I pulled up, I think it was probably the most recent episode, and the prompt was like favorite game train.
I wasn't on that episode, so I didn't get to answer it.
I was like, what the fuck game has a train in it? The only train I can think of is the one in Final Fantasy VIII.
Dance They Go has a lot of trains in it.
That's true.
It has all the trains in it. And then there's Final Fantasy VI, the train that you suplex.
Literally, I think 8 is the only train I can think of. And like, that is a very cool sequence. So like, I'm not mad at having to pick that for my favorite train.
Yeah.
Like, the only train isn't necessarily your favorite train.
Yeah, but you could sell it.
Oh no, I absolutely could. I could talk it up.
Welcome back to the insert credit 8-4 podcast swap situation.
TM, the registered trademark.
The ongoing podcast swap situation. All right, next question. What is your approach to game localization purity? When can you tell that a game's localization team has taken too many liberties or have suffered to adhere too closely to the original text?
Good.
I feel like some intelligent
question.
answers are going to come out here.
If this side doesn't answer this one better, then I will be very particularly embarrassed.
I just felt my brain like literally melting while I was hearing that question.
I'll go first because I'm the least qualified to answer this.
Excellent.
Because I have not been doing this for very long. For me, if I see the line, "It can't be helped," I know that this could have been done better.
Yeah.
John?
Yeah. No. That is a really difficult, it's a great question, but it's also a really hard question. And one that I think is, it's almost even, it feels like stressful to answer at this point because of the way different people approach this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that, purity, what is purity, right? Like, I think that if you are translating stuff word for word to be exactly the same as what the Japanese says, you're doing it wrong. And, but is that purity to some people?
Right.
Or, I don't know. Purity is sort of like what you make of it, I feel like.
Yeah, for me, I prefer a rewrite.
Yeah.
I like a naturalization as though it was written for the first time in English. And so that requires changing things.
Our approach has always been, we don't want any, and this goes the other way too. We translate stuff into Japanese as well, but we don't want people, whoever the target player is, to feel like it was, we want them to feel like it was written for them in the first place, even if it didn't start out in their language.
Shouldn't have to, for example, like, look, if in the original target audience was not expected to have to like look something up on the internet to understand a reference or a joke or what something is or whatever, then in the new language, I feel like they should also not have to do that, right? And then it does get you into tricky situations. I remember the Alex Smith always brings up this example of a kotatsu, which for people who don't know it only really exists in Japan, but it's a low table that has a heating element underneath and it's electric. It was used as like a murder weapon,
and it has a big woolen,
a big blanket.
Yeah, usually there's a blanket over it, and you can put your feet under there. And by the way, it's the greatest thing ever.
They're spectacular. They're
I love
wonderful.
them. Yeah. But it was used as a murder weapon. This was kind of the crux of this novel. And so, but he did figure a way out of very naturally working in, without disrupting what was already there, a way of explaining what that was without screwing it up and without also forcing not changing it into like, there were some embarrassing examples early on in the gaming industry of stuff getting, really.
Well, like the hamburger or whatever stuff. I don't know.
Of what it was. Yeah. Like you couldn't have rice balls. It always had to turn into a hamburger.
They were donuts.
Or whatever. Yeah.
And those kind of challenges come up a lot. And whether
there's always a way to do it. But it's sometimes not enough time. There's sometimes not enough time or money or will to actually find the like silver bullet solution that's going to actually ride that balance between authenticity and being natural.
Yeah. I think the first thing anyone needs to understand is that a translation is a creative work in itself, and it's not going to be exactly the same as what the original, thing was. And if you really want that that ultra, quote unquote, pure experience, learn the language. And so, I mean it, like, I'm not being insulting. Like, that's the way to get that. But otherwise, understand that, five amazing translators can translate the same thing 5 very different ways. And it's not like any one of them would necessarily be the wrong way to do it. But I think, like, on a more broad level, when we're doing games and stuff, like, is the player supposed to laugh here? Is the player supposed to feel like a funny little tickle for whatever reason here? Are they supposed to be sad? Are they this, that? Whatever the emotion that they would have experienced in the original language, like, I think capturing that first and foremost is important. That doesn't mean you can just stop there. Like, you have, that doesn't mean, write whatever the hell I want as long as he laughs. No, like, it needs to be localized, carefully. But I think ultimately, if you're not eliciting the same or similar emotions from people to the context that it makes sense to do so, then you're failing.
Well, it's the author's intent, right? It's the author's intent. And the problem with a lot of localization is a lot of times you don't have access to the author. It makes a huge difference. Places that prioritize localization, like for speaking broadly, like Nintendo got on this early, where they, especially with the first party stuff, they're in the room talking to the people and they're like, well, we could do this or this, and like explaining the nuance of the different options and whatever. That's not always a great thing to have the author involved to that extent. A lot of times the author might think that they understand English or Japanese to better than they actually do, but having access to them to at least find out, what were you going for here? It feels like you were trying to do this, like confirming what their intent was and being able to follow that with what you do, I feel like is important no matter what.
I worry about that because I feel like people localizing my games may not know when I'm making jokes.
Yeah,
absolutely. My jokes are like hyper dry, but very funny to certain people, but also completely imperceptible to others.
It can get really like Undertale. If you go into the different levels of stuff that's going on with the different types of humor and things in Undertale. I mean, this is really hard. Some people aren't going to get it, like you're talking about, just in general, much less the one person who happens to be assigned to translate your game. And so I think that's where, like really meticulous notes also come into play, where it's like, I mean, and that's what happened with Undertale, right? A lot. He was super involved. Toby was leaving. Here's what this actually, it's funny because you don't even think about it yourself sometimes. You just put it down there and you have to go back and actually explain to somebody why this is why you found this amusing or why it's supposed to be disturbing or whatever.
I'll let us run 30 seconds over because you said the word Undertale.
Generosity.
Which game studio has produced the greatest number of good games without releasing any bad ones?
Well, I don't think... Is there a studio that hasn't made any?
My employer, Enhanced Experience Incorporated, I feel like should be mentioned at this time.
That's right.
87 Metacritic. I might have just been making a PowerPoint presentation, but 6 games, 87 Metacritic, no negative reviews, Metacritic average. Take that for what you will. No, without releasing any...
I think the easiest
bad ones.
The way that I would usually cheat when I was a panelist on this show is I would choose someone that only released one game.
So, well, like, if you want to get away on a technicality, there are lots of those.
Disco Elysium, that team, they've released, but that wouldn't be the most because it's only one. So if we can find 2, then we're in business.
I think about Super Giant a lot because the thing that I'm amazed by them is how quickly they generally do their games, because a lot of places when they have a big success, they get, I don't know, I'll tell you when I have a big success, but I'm guessing it's either because they are like enjoying their success or they feel pressure for the next game, or there's lots of different reasons to not have them. But they pretty much like put something out like every 3 or 4 years, I want to say.
They are prolific.
They have a real process. And I think a part of it is also that they've never taken investment from anyone. Mm-hmm. And never had a publisher. And
they get crazy offers probably every day.
Oh yeah. But they're in control of their own destiny. And so they can make a plan and stick to it. But most companies, including mine, can't make a plan at all. So it's very impressive.
Who else? Who else are some...
The answer is Sega, because no Sega game is bad. All delightful. That's not true.
Isn't Angry Birds is a Sega game now, right?
Yeah, I guess
not technically. Well, no, but I mean, I was trying to think.
Angry Birds is good.
Well, yeah, sure, for some people. I mean, that's not fair to say that it's bad, but it's not for me. It's certainly fair to say it's not for me. I was trying to think of like if there's any companies that actually has done a lot of games and managed to at least come close to this. But yeah, that's difficult. I mean, I was thinking of like, even like if you pick an era and a time, like Konami NES era was pretty great, like 98% of the time, but they still had their duds in there, I
mean, Valve, I don't play their card game or whatever, so I'll throw Valve's out as
pretty good
as an idea.
They're quite consistent.
Yeah.
Do they have a bad one?
That's because they put something out like every 13 years or something though, right? Like, I mean,
there had to have been a bad Valve game.
Probably
Did they make
early
like some
on.
FMV game or something early on that we don't know about?
There's some nodding happening
I know.
off mic here about a bad Valve game, but we're never going to find out what that was.
I don't count that card. I don't count the card game, Gabe. Yeah, so I don't.
Oh, okay.
Nobody here knows what the hell that thing was. It only existed for like 2 months, to be fair. I'd put them out there. They're pretty good. What are some Japanese? There's some Japanese.
Well, the problem is all of the Japanese companies are so long in the tooth, the ones that still exist,
that they sooner or later you put something bad out. Has Vanillaware put out something bad?
Vanillaware. I was just going to say Vanillaware has had mostly good stuff. I feel
they've definitely put some mediocre stuff out, I would say.
Yeah, that one game, what was it? Sword
Treasure has made mostly good games,
but they've done some kind of stuff.
Yeah, Treasure had, it was Stretch Panic and
forgot about that
one.
I
like Stretch Panic, but like Beat'em there's like the Dragon Beat, whatever. There's just like
I guess if you dig deep,
even Mischief Makers was kind of
we did a treasure ranking episode, and Mischief Makers did not rank that high.
Did Stretch Panic rate high? I'm surprised to find a Stretch Panic fan here. That's like a demo.
I put Stretch Panic higher because that's funny to do. We got Stretch Panic up there somewhere, but we all had to acknowledge it's bad. The other thing is bad is subjective, of course, and so
that is of course true.
I could very easily say Kavia never made a bad game because I love Bullet Witch. And I think it's great. And when I do like a force push and pull a bunch of garbage from behind myself and it kills me instantly, I still think it's a good game. So,
I think whoever makes the EDF series, they've never made a bad game.
God.
That's true. Sandlot.
Let's not open that.
As I look at Mark.
By the way,
what, you don't like EDF? That's wrong.
I mean, the EDF is a beautiful idea.
Where's the bullets?
Run through a terrible
I need bullets.
Garbage,
I can't do that right now.
10 frames a second. Unplayable mess of
how many more frames
scheme.
do you need?
That was 20 years ago, though. Come on, they're good now.
You know what? Frames.
They're good now. It's the same game still. It's the same simple 2000 game. Come on.
It's better and more, except the new one looks like Minecraft nonsense.
Yes.
I don't know why they're doing that. But that one's technically made by Ukes, so it's not Sandlot's
You answered
fault.
your own question with it looking like Minecraft, by the way. It's like, wait, if we make things look like Minecraft, does that mean it sells more?
Okay, that's time.
Okay.
What is the "But Doctor, I am Pagliacci" of video games?
What?
Wait,
I don't even understand that question.
we have to spend the first 2 minutes explaining that question.
I understand the question, but I'm trying to parse it. I'm like, wait, okay, who's Pagliacci in this equation? Is the game Pagliacci?
We have to figure this out. Is the game Pagliacci? Is it a person?
Or is the game the doctor? Is the player Pagliacci?
I feel like I should know who Pagliacci is at
You
this
do
point.
not know this story?
It's the story of Pagliacci.
For the listeners, please.
Oh yes, of course,
I do.
of course.
Someone goes to the doctor and says, "I'm so depressed," and the doctor says, "Well, why don't you go see the great clown Pagliacci? He's in town right now. He's very funny. He always cheers everyone up." And then the patient says, "But doctor, I am Pagliacci."
Okay,
so
all
that's the situation.
Tears of a clown story.
Got it.
So now we're figuring out in this equation, where is the game?
What was the question again?
What is the "But doctor, I am Pagliacci" of video games?
Oh.
So like.
Is it not like Bayonetta? I don't know.
Wait,
What's your reasoning for that?
Yeah,
talk us through
I
it.
feel like they spend so much time and energy and has such a seemingly big fan base, but it doesn't ever seem to perform.
Oh.
So I don't know.
I'm
not digging it. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I tried, Tina.
So who's Pagliacci in it?
Pass.
I think one kind of perhaps sad example is, what's his name? Yeo, the guy who released Friends of Rikyu Ishikawa. That,
yeah. There was a Russian developer, right?
Russian developer. and makes these games that are really good that people really love and find moving. And then if you look at his social media, he's just depressed and hates his games and feels like they're garbage and puts it out and is like, well,
that's
there
sad.
it is. I crapped it out again or whatever. It's so sad because everybody.
So you were thinking developers? Because I was thinking of this in terms of video games themselves. But
I was trying to think of an example of like a game that seems like it's going to be really, really fun, but then it's actually depressing. Or it seems like it's going to be like an emotional journey. And then it's just...
My answer didn't even make sense, but I was thinking of the game as like having its own feelings. And like I was thinking, Bayonetta is depressed because Bayonetta is so cool, but it's not selling. Like that's how I was thinking.
There you go. That's a good way to interpret it. That's a good way to interpret it.
If it came off as a dig, that wasn't how I meant it. But yeah, that's kind of how I was thinking of it.
No, I think that does it. Well, I guess we've answered it. It's Bayonetta. So that means... I'm going to move on to our lightning round.
Oh, God.
Oh, boy.
So the lightning round is where we have to quickly answer a series of questions.
Oh, no.
And based on one single prompt. And the game this time is called First Person Pronouns.
Bayonetta.
That's right. So I'm going to give you a Japanese first person pronoun, and you have to give me an example of a video game character who would use it.
Ooh.
Not factually does, just like
Not
that's their
factually
vibe.
does. It's just their vibe.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, are we ready?
John, we're going to lean on you.
We're
heavy
prepared.
for
Oh,
sure.
man.
We're prepared. Okay, we're going to give it a shot. Okay, number one, watakushi.
Very...
And you can talk it through if you want to.
I'm thinking of like the butler in the Nintendo like adventure game, that game Famicom Detective Club or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
He just looks like a watakushi.
Oh, that's a deep
What
pull.
a strange place to go.
That's a deep pull.
I did trust me. I had to go somewhere, and that's where I landed. Yeah,
That's good.
I don't
Okay,
know.
we're moving along. Atakushi.
A what?
Atashi?
Atakushi.
I don't know anyone who's ever said that.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, atakushi.
Atakushi.
Oh, okay, not atashi.
No,
Oh.
that's coming up.
Oh.
I'm going to make a terrible joke and say the car in Crazy Taxi. Atakushi.
Oh, yeah. That's what we're
Hey-o,
talking
high
about.
five.
We
Good
got
save.
it.
That's
All
a
right,
good
okay,
one.
that's the one. Watashi. Plain old vanilla.
That could go all kinds
But it
of...
could be not vanilla.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm trying to see if like a visual just comes out without really thinking, and nothing is coming out for Watashi because it's kind of just like the everyone.
I want to say
Yeah.
like a heroine. Yeah, and like a...
Sometimes you hear like the kind of evil mastermind though uses Watashi, or whatever sort of thing, but I
Sure.
still can't think of someone in particular. So
Pass. On the most generic one of all of them.
Too applicable to too many
we
situations.
have to answer it. So Mario, he's generic.
Okay, sure.
Okay, Atashi.
someone cute, obviously.
Yeah.
What about that annoying girl in Star Ocean? What is she? You know the one I'm talking about.
I forgot her name, but yeah, that doesn't help. Yeah, Star Ocean 4, the girl who ends all her sentences with K. She's a Natashi kind of type. Any like, if you say that, I picture like a 3 or 4 foot tall, like small girl in a dress, like in a,
Who's actually 6,000 years old?
exactly right.
Of course, Manitree.
Okay, Washi.
The old guy in Drakengard 3 who like is obsessed with sex. I forgot his name though.
Sounds like a cool dude.
That's another.
We got to
deep pull.
remember these names.
Washi.
Octo was his name, I think. Maybe you don't remember. I thought you would know him. Yeah, he's a very perverse old guy. Maybe don't look that up. But yeah, he's definitely a washi. I feel like kind of guy.
The first thing I thought of was a great Deku Tree, but maybe there's one that's going to be better for him later.
Ooh,
that's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, there's more humans, so we can use that one. Or more characters, I should say. Boku.
Boku wasa.
Link feels like a Boku to me.
Yeah,
He's a bit of a Boku.
I could see it.
Those who have Natsuyasemis would use
Yeah.
Boku.
Yeah,
That's true.
That's where my
Those who Natsuyasumi.
That's right where my brain went.
Okay,
Crayon Shinchan is Ore, right? Probably. I don't know what he does. Anyway,
yeah, I think he's a Boku.
is he?
I think he's a Boku,
Seems like
but he might
have a
switch
distinct-
over
some
sometime.
kind of weird distinct.
But
one.
speaking of which, Ore,
Kaine.
Kaine,
Kiryu.
Kiryu is the first I thought of. Yeah, but Kaine is a good one. Not entire left field, but slight left field. So that's good. I like it. Jibun.
Jibun wasa. Jibun.
I feel like it's a salary man.
I can see
Nah,
that.
salaryman character would be the Watashi, if
a
anything,
bucho.
right?
Like a
If we're going with that vibe, the normal type gym leader from Scarlet Violet.
okay.
Wow.
What was his name?
I don't remember his name.
Do you remember?
Let's just accept that we're not going to know anyone's names.
Larry.
Larry.
Oh, that guy was the best gym leader in that game. He was wonderful.
Is his name really Larry, or did you just pick a random? Okay, that's good.
And the last one, Oida.
You got a good answer for that one.
How can you not answer Sans?
I was waiting for that one. I was really waiting if that one was going to come up.
Yeah, so we got an extra bonus question from our host, Alex Jaffe. If anyone happened to work on the Undertale translation, defend your choice of the I pronoun for Sans.
Dun, dun,
well, the people who actually worked on the Undertale localization on that level are wonderful Japanese translators who aren't here in the room. But I will say that the lead translator on that game is, I think, one of the best translators in the business. Just fantastic at this sort of thing. And I thought that when she made that call, and I don't remember that she made it alone. It was probably a few people chiming in with their feelings and stuff. But like, we all knew it was like the right call. And then, of course, when it went out on the internet, it caused like a sensation for like a day or two, or whatever. But if you look back now, I feel like everybody couldn't imagine it any other way.
Because a fan dub or fan sub existed, right? And it was different.
It was certainly different.
So people formed an image based on that. And so the fact that it was different, and I think that's what's that Fangamer book just all about?
There is a book about the localization from Fangamer called Legends of Localization.
Literally wrote
Undertale.
a book about it. and yeah, what you get from that is how involved and deep in it that Toby was.
Yeah,
with Keiko, right? Is the main
Keiko's
translator, and she's one of the best Ida J's out there. Period. Has done a lot of great stuff, and
she's studied script writing and stuff too. She's not just a fantastic translator; she's an amazing writer, and I think she just nailed it. So like, I feel like I'm just not the person to defend someone else's like creative choice like that. But I will say, like, I'm 100% behind it, and I think it was absolutely the right choice, and I can't even see it any other way now.
Excellent. So this has been Insert Credit. The answer to that question was please buy and read a book.
It's time for recommendations. Hello, I'm Alex Jaffe, and welcome back to my show. I'd like to thank Brandon for hosting this episode with the 8-4 play crew while abroad, and for getting these recommendations for our final segment after recording. Mark McDonald would just like to plug Enhance's games Humanity, Tetris Effect, Luminous Remastered, and Res Infinite. Find them wherever you find fine games of the video variety. John recommends following him on your social network of choice at John TV and to listen to their own audio program called 8-4 Play. And if you're interested in game development and haven't yet subscribed to Masahiro Sakurai's YouTube channel,
With that, I'm Brandon Sheffield.
I'm Tina Carter.
I'm Mark McDonald.
Hi, I'm John Riccardi. Bye.
And your game has now been saved. Okay, I forgot to mention that somebody wins the show, and nobody's here anymore, but the winner is Tina.
Because I'm still present?
No, because you said the fewest words, and that was the best choice for this episode.
Wow. Look at me.
You win.
Excelling with my brevity.
Your prize is that you get to do homework, which is you have to send me a question for the show for next week.
Wait, that's actually awesome. I'm so excited to stump everyone.
You're going to do it.
I'm going to do it.
Thank you.